It's funny how life works out. One minute, you're a young man with the world in front of you, and the next, you're staring at a reflection in the mirror that barely even looks like the person you remember. Robert Mitchell, once a successful businessman, hell, I was more than that, now sits here, retired, forgotten by everyone, including my own children. That's the price you pay for playing the game too hard for too long. You think they'll remember, you think they'll appreciate the sacrifices you made, but in the end, they just see an old man sitting in a house that doesn't even belong to him anymore. I used to work my ass off, day in, day out, my job, my career, everything I did for them, for Ashley, for Michael, but now? Now they don't need me. Not in the way I thought they would. Not in the way a father hopes his children will turn to him for wisdom, for guidance. They don't need me for advice anymore. Hell, they don't even need me for the money. They've learned to take care of themselves, or more accurately, learned to take from me. I never thought it would be like this. You always hear about kids who grow up and forget the sacrifices their parents made. But you don't expect it to happen to you. Not to me. I've worked so hard, bled for those kids. The house I built, the life I gave them, the lessons I taught. I thought they'd be grateful. Instead, all I've done is watch them grow further away, turning into people I don't even recognize. People who only call when they need something. People who think their father is nothing more than a bank with a heartbeat. It all started a few months ago. A phone call, like any other. I remember it like it was yesterday. Ashley, my daughter, calling to say, "Dad, we've sold the house. The deal went through. Don't worry, we'll make sure you're taken care of." Taken care of. That's what she said. Funny thing about that phrase, taken care of. It's the kind of thing people say when they want you to believe something, but they know deep down that they've already made their decision without you. I didn't even know the house was on the market. Never asked for it to be. My home. The one I worked my entire life for. Gone. Just like that. $900,000 in their hands, and me sitting here with nothing more than a check for $10,000. A check for $10,000. That was Ashley's grand gesture, the same daughter I raised, the one I sacrificed everything for. I get a check and a note that says, "Find yourself a room far from town, Dad." As the story unfolds, take a moment to like, subscribe, and write in the comments. Would you forgive them, or walk away? I still remember the coldness of it all, that flat, emotionless tone, like I wasn't her father anymore, just some old man they needed to get rid of. I remember standing there holding that check, the ink still fresh, my fingers trembling slightly, but not because of the shock, not because I was hurt. No, I wasn't hurt. Not at first. What hit me was something deeper, something darker. It was betrayal, but it wasn't the kind that made you cry. It wasn't that heartbreaking kind of betrayal where you just want to curl up and disappear. No, it was the kind that lit a fire inside you. The kind that makes you see things for what they really are. They didn't care about me. They never did. This wasn't about family anymore. This was about money, and they were just getting rid of me so they could keep playing their game. I wasn't a father to them. I wasn't a man they could turn to for advice, for comfort. I was a liability, a burden. And in that moment, I knew. They had made the biggest mistake of their lives. They'd pushed me too far. I took that check from Ashley, looked at her, smiled. I was calm. Too calm. And I said, "Thanks, sweetheart. This will be useful." She smiled back, thinking she'd done the right thing. I could see it in her eyes, the same look she had when she was a little girl, thinking she'd made me proud with a drawing or a good grade. But this time, she wasn't making me proud. She was making a decision that would haunt her. She thought she'd gotten away with it, but she didn't know what I had planned. She didn't know that I had already started making moves. The house may have been gone, but I wasn't. I wasn't gone. Not by a long shot. I knew what I had to do. I knew what was coming next. This wasn't going to be some emotional outburst or some grand speech about what I'd done for them. This was going to be something far more satisfying, something they didn't expect, something that would make them regret the day they decided I was disposable. I wouldn't forgive them. Not now. Not ever. They had crossed a line, and there was no going back. I don't care how much money they had. I don't care what they thought they could get away with. I was going to show them that they couldn't treat me like this. That's when I started planning. That's when the game changed. And the best part? They would never see it coming. I began to see the pieces fall into place. The money, the documents, the legal loopholes, they were all there. All I had to do was set it all up, wait for the right moment, and let them fall into their own trap. They wanted me out of their lives? Fine. I would give them exactly what they wanted. But when I was done with them, they would understand the cost of their choices. I wasn't just going to leave. I wasn't just going to walk away quietly. No. I would make sure they knew exactly what they'd lost. I wasn't the old man they thought I was. I wasn't weak, and I wasn't scared. I was done playing the role of the father who did everything for his children. Now I was playing a different role. The role of the man who would get his revenge. And it was going to be sweet. I stood there for a long time after Ashley left, holding that check in my hand, watching the ink blur in my mind. It wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a symbol of their disrespect, of their assumption that I could be pushed aside so easily. I took a breath, letting the anger settle into a cold, calculated clarity. It wasn't just about the money. It was about everything. The years, the sacrifices, the love I'd poured into raising them. They thought they had won, but they were wrong. I put the check down and sat at my desk, my mind already working, setting a plan into motion. They thought they could get rid of me with a piece of paper and a few words. Well, it wasn't going to be that easy. I had spent my life building things, making connections, and I wasn't about to let them take it all away from me without a fight. I knew how the system worked. I knew how to play the game, and now it was my turn to call the shots. I started with the financials. I pulled out the documents that outlined the sale of the house. I'd never been one to miss the fine details, even in the midst of all the chaos. I went through each line, each transaction, until I had a clear picture of where the money had gone. And I realized something. I still had access to it. My children might have thought they could take everything, but they'd overlooked one thing. Me. I opened my laptop and logged into the bank account, checking the funds they'd left behind. A small, insidious smile crept across my face as I saw the sum that was still there. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Enough to start my plan. I transferred part of the money into my own account, more than enough to cover my needs. I could hear Ashley's voice in my head, telling me to find a room far from town. She had no idea what she was dealing with. No idea that I was still very much in control. I wasn't going to be pushed out like some old man who had nothing left to give. No, I still had power. And now I was going to use it. I didn't stop there. I began to set up a few more safeguards, moving small sums here and there, making sure that neither Ashley nor Michael could access any of the funds without my permission. They wanted control? Fine. I would give it to them, but not in the way they expected. I would let them think they had won, and then, when the time was right, I'd pull the rug out from under them, just like they had done to me. Only I'd do it with style. As I went through the process, I realized that what I was doing wasn't just about money. It was about justice. I wasn't some helpless old man. I wasn't a burden to them. I was still capable of making things happen, capable of turning the tables. They had underestimated me, and that was their biggest mistake. Days passed. The plan was in motion. I started receiving documents from my lawyer, who had been instructed to look into various legal matters, including the transfer of the house and other assets. My lawyer was an old friend, someone who understood the importance of this. We were going to make sure everything was locked down tight, and that meant no one, not even my own children, would be able to touch what was rightfully mine. I was meticulous about it. I made sure every move was calculated, every document in place. I wasn't going to give them any excuse to come after me. The more I worked, the calmer I became. It was like a switch had flipped inside me. What I had initially felt as rage now felt like something more controlled, something almost pleasurable. But just when I thought I was making progress, the phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I knew exactly who it was when I picked up. Robert. Her voice was soft, hesitant. I think we need to talk. It was Georgia. I hadn't heard from her in years, not since she left us, left me, and the kids, of course. She'd always been more of a distant figure in their lives, someone who popped in and out when it was convenient for her. And now, after all this time, she was trying to get back into their lives. Why now? I asked, not hiding the frustration in my voice. After all this time, now you want to fix things? I'm just trying to help the kids, she said, her voice trembling slightly. They need their father, Robert. I don't want them to lose you. I had to laugh at that. Help? They needed their father? I wasn't the one who had left them, and I certainly wasn't the one who had sold my own house out from under them. You're a little too late for that, I replied, my tone cold. They've already made their choice. They don't need me, Georgia. They just need my money. She hesitated on the other end of the line. I know things have been difficult, but please, Robert, don't do anything you'll regret. Her words hit me, but I pushed them aside. She didn't understand. She had no idea what they had done, how they had betrayed me. She was still living in some fantasy world where we could all be one big happy family again. But that wasn't how it worked anymore. I've made up my mind, I said firmly, and you need to stay out of it. There was silence on the other end of the line for a moment before she spoke again, quieter this time. I'm worried, Robert. I don't think you fully understand what's at stake here. You don't know what they're capable of. I could feel her fear through the phone, and part of me wanted to tell her that she was right, that I didn't fully understand. But then I remembered how they'd looked at me when I stood there, accepting that check with the smile on my face. They thought they had me beaten. They were wrong. I know exactly what they're capable of, I said, the words coming out like ice, and that's why they won't get away with it. I hung up without another word, my mind already turning over the next step in my plan. Georgia had no idea what was really going on. She didn't see the full picture. She thought she was protecting them, but she didn't understand the depth of the betrayal. She didn't understand that once you cross a line like they had, there was no going back. And I wasn't going to be the one to turn the other cheek anymore. She'd soon realize, just like they would, that I wasn't the man she thought I was. I was the man who had been pushed too far. And now, there would be consequences. I wasn't going to forgive them. Not now. Not ever. But what Georgia didn't know, what no one knew, was that the real game was just getting started, and I had already won. I didn't have to wait long before Michael made his move. I had expected it, of course. The kid was always good at trying to force his way through life, and now, faced with losing control of everything, he did what he knew best. He tried to intimidate me. It started with a phone call. One of those calls where you know exactly what's coming but can't help but listen anyway. Michael's voice came through, tight and controlled, like he was trying to hide the panic I could hear in his words. "Dad, we need to talk," he said, his voice strained. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I took a long breath and leaned back in my chair, running my fingers along the edges of the desk. I knew what this was about. I knew he was going to try something, try to manipulate me, threaten me, something. I was already prepared. "I'm listening," I said flatly. He didn't waste time. "You can't keep doing this, Dad. You're going too far. I'll take care of things for you. You just need to give us access to the money, and we'll work this out. You don't have to do this. You're better than this. Better than this? The nerve of him. I wasn't doing anything but taking back what they tried to take from me. I wasn't the one who started this. I wasn't the one who had treated me like I didn't matter. You don't get it, do you, Michael? I replied, letting my voice go cold. I've already made my decision. I'm not going to help you anymore. Not with money. Not with anything. You and Ashley crossed a line when you sold the house without even telling me. And now I'm making you face the consequences of that decision. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. I could practically feel his frustration building up, but I didn't care. This wasn't about me being the forgiving father anymore. This was about setting the record straight. Dad, listen. He tried again, his voice growing more desperate. You don't have to do this. You're just angry, I get it. But we can fix this. I'll make things right. We'll all be fine. But you have to help us. You want me to help you? I asked, my tone biting. After everything you've done? After everything you've taken from me? I'm your son, Michael snapped. You owe me. We've been through a lot, but I'm still your son. You can't just throw that away. I laughed. It wasn't a laugh of humor. It was a laugh of disbelief. You think I owe you? You think because you're my son, you're entitled to anything I've worked for? You want to talk about family? Fine. Let's talk about family. You and Ashley made sure I had nothing left. No house, no dignity, nothing. Now, you want to come to me with empty promises? Michael was quiet for a long time. He wasn't used to being talked to like that. He didn't like being called out on his crap, but I wasn't done. Here's the deal, Michael. You'll get nothing from me. Not now, not ever. You and Ashley have made your bed. Now, you'll lie in it. His voice cracked, the last shred of his control slipping away. You can't do this, Dad. You're just angry. No, I cut him off, my voice steady, unwavering. I'm not angry. I'm done. You've made your choice and I've made mine. The line went silent. Michael didn't have anything left to say. I hung up the phone and sat back in my chair, a calm settling over me. This was just the first round. I knew it would take time, but I could already see it. I could see their world slowly starting to unravel. They had no idea what was coming, but even as I felt the satisfaction of winning that first round, I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Michael might have been the one to step up first, but I knew Ashley wasn't far behind. She wouldn't let this go, especially after everything they had planned for me. I wasn't done yet. I'd taken the first step, but there was more to be done. They were still under the false belief that they could control everything. They had no idea how deeply I was going to bury them in their own lies. A few days later, Georgia called. I had known she'd eventually reach out. She had no idea what she was dealing with. Robert. Her voice came through the phone, quiet and hesitant, like she wasn't sure how to start. I've been talking to the kids, and they're really worried about you. They don't understand why you're doing this, why you're going so far. She sounded almost pleading, as if she still thought there was a way to patch things up, but there was no patching this. The wound was too deep. Georgia, I said, my tone flat, don't get involved in this. You left them, remember? You don't get to come back and try to fix what you broke. They made their choice a long time ago. I'm not the one who abandoned them. I didn't abandon them, she protested. I did what I had to do. But Robert, please, this isn't the way. I know you're hurt, but revenge won't solve anything. It won't make you feel better. I felt the anger start to rise again, but I controlled it. You don't understand. You never did. And now you want to pretend like you're the voice of reason? You left. You have no idea what they did. You have no idea what they've taken from me. This isn't about healing some family wound, Georgia. This is about paying for the damage they've caused. She was silent for a long time, and I could tell she didn't know what to say. Please, Robert, she said finally, don't go down this path. It won't make you feel better in the end. I've already made my decision, I said firmly, and I won't change it. I ended the call without another word, and as I sat there, I realized something. Georgia wasn't going to get it. She wasn't going to understand. She didn't have the same anger, the same hurt that I did. She didn't know what it was like to give everything for your children, only to have them rip it away without a second thought. She was just trying to save them from the consequences of their own actions. But the truth was, they had to face it. I had to make them face it. But while I was dealing with Georgia, I was also keeping an eye on Ashley. It wasn't long before I heard from my bank that she had tried to access some of the funds I had moved. She tried to sneak in through the system, thinking she could pull a fast one and fix things, but it didn't work. She failed. Miserably. The look on her face when she found out would be priceless. I couldn't wait to see how she'd react when she realized I had been one step ahead the entire time. And that, I knew, was just the beginning. The game was on, and they were already losing. I knew the peace wouldn't last. The first strike had been a victory, but there was more to come. As soon as Michael was out of the picture, I expected Ashley to make her move. And sure enough, it didn't take long for her to show her hand. She was desperate. I could hear it in her voice when she called, but I didn't let it show. She thought she could manipulate me, twist the situation to make me feel guilty, but I had already seen through her game. "Robert, you don't understand," she began, her voice almost trembling. "We're family. You can't just cut us off like this. You're not the man I thought you were. This isn't you." I didn't let her finish. "This is exactly who I am now, Ashley. The man you and Michael made me. The man who's finally standing up for himself." Her silence told me everything I needed to know. She was reeling from the realization that her usual tricks weren't going to work anymore. "Please, Dad," she pleaded, softening her tone. "I don't know what's happening to us. Things are falling apart and we need your help. Michael doesn't know what he's doing. He's just angry and No." I cut her off again. "You're not going to pull this emotional blackmail on me. Not anymore." There was a pause, then a sharp intake of breath on the other end. I could feel her trying to recalibrate, trying to come up with something else that might break me down. But there was nothing left. I had already made my decision. I was done. "Robert, please. You have to understand, we're all we've got left. Mom's gone, and we can't survive without you." Her words hit me in a way I didn't expect, but not for the reasons she thought. I wasn't some emotional wreck, clinging to memories of the past. No, I was past that, long past it. I had watched her and Michael turn their backs on me, and now they wanted me to bail them out? I wasn't a fool. "This is your mess, Ashley. You and Michael made it, and now you're going to deal with the consequences. I'm not your safety net anymore. You don't get to just come to me when things go wrong." I hung up before she could respond, a calmness settling in me. I had been through enough to know that no matter what they said, they were never going to change. They would always take, always expect, and never give anything back. They had proven that to me over and over. I knew it was time to take the next step. I wasn't going to give them access to anything. No more money, no more favors. Everything I had worked for, everything they thought they could just take from me, was locked down tight now. And I had the means to make sure it stayed that way. I called my lawyer and instructed him to put the final pieces in place. I knew he had connections, people who could help me cut off every access point they had to my assets. The house might be gone, but I wasn't going to let them run away with everything else. I wasn't going to let them control me any longer. With a few key calls, I started the process of freezing accounts, making sure every dollar they thought they could get their hands on was out of reach. My lawyer handled the details, but I watched carefully, making sure no stone was left unturned. My business connections, the ones I had nurtured for years, were in place now. I was going to use every last one of them to block their every move. Meanwhile, I had a bit of a surprise waiting for me. Georgia. It wasn't surprising that she would try to intervene. She had never been great at making decisions when it mattered, and now she was doing the same thing she always did, trying to fix things without really understanding the depth of the damage. She thought she could just step in and stop what was happening, thinking it was all just a family squabble that would blow over. I didn't want to talk to her, but she called anyway, almost as if she didn't have a clue about the mess her children had made. "Robert," she said softly, almost nervously, "you can't keep doing this. I've talked to Ashley and she's really upset. They don't understand why you're punishing them like this. They're your children. You can't just shut them out." I let her speak, but I wasn't hearing anything new. She was the same as she always was, trying to protect them, trying to protect her own guilt. She was delusional, thinking everything could be fixed with a few kind words. "I'm not punishing them, Georgia," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'm teaching them. They've made their choices and now they have to deal with the fallout. You think this is about revenge? It's not. It's about showing them that actions have consequences. They can't just walk all over me and expect me to bend over backwards for them." "Please, Robert," she insisted. "They're your kids. You raised them. You love them." "I love them," I said, the words sharper than I meant them to be. "But they've taken everything from me, and I'm done. I'm done trying to fix things. You left. You walked away from them. You have no right to try to fix what they've broken. This isn't your place anymore." Her voice faltered. I didn't think you'd be like this. I didn't think you'd go this far." I didn't respond. There was nothing more to say. She was never going to understand. I hung up before she could say another word, and for the first time in years, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had made my decision. No more playing the fool. No more playing the part of the father they could walk all over. I went back to my paperwork, watching the clock tick down as the final steps were put in place. But just as I thought everything was secure, something unexpected happened. I got a call from the bank. At first, it seemed like just another routine call. But then, I heard the words that made my heart sink. Ashley had tried to access the money I had moved. She was trying to sneak into the accounts, bypassing the safeguards I had set up. Her attempt failed. Miserably. The bank had flagged the transaction immediately, and they were now looking into it. I felt a small thrill of satisfaction. They thought they could pull a fast one. They thought I wouldn't be paying attention, that they could outsmart me. But they had underestimated me. Again. I took the phone off the hook and let out a breath. I knew now that this wasn't just about blocking their access to money. This was about exposing their lies. They had used every trick in the book to get ahead, thinking they could fool me into giving them more, but I was done being fooled. I called my lawyer, told him to move forward with the next phase, exposing everything. All their lies, all their manipulation, the things they thought they could get away with. It was time to make them face the music. And this time, there was no way out. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about showing them exactly who they were and who they had made me become. They thought they had won. They were wrong. They had no idea what was coming next. Things started to heat up in ways I hadn't expected. I had done what I could to protect myself, locked up every financial outlet, closed every door they thought they could sneak through. But that wasn't enough. They were still coming at me, still trying to manipulate their way back into my good graces. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how far gone they were. Ashley, Michael. They didn't just want my money, they wanted to control me. And as the pressure mounted, they started realizing that their plans were falling apart. Fast. I could feel it when the phone rang one night. It was late, but it wasn't a surprise. I had known they would keep trying. Ashley's voice came through, tense but trying to sound casual, like she hadn't just tried to break into my accounts again. "Dad," she said, almost too calmly, "we need to talk about everything. I don't know what's going on, but we need to fix this. You can't just shut us out like this. You've always said we're family. Always said we're family." Funny how those words only came up when they needed something. Funny how they never bothered to use those words when it mattered. I leaned back in my chair, waiting for the next part. The part where she'd beg. "What do you want, Ashley?" I said, keeping my tone steady. She hesitated before responding, like she was working through her next move. "We're trying to do the right thing here, Dad. We really are. But if you don't start working with us, well, it's going to be too late to fix anything." I almost laughed. I could hear the panic in her voice now. She wasn't calm. She was desperate. And it hit me all at once how far gone they both were. They had no idea how deeply they'd messed up. "You think I don't know what's going on?" I asked, the words sharp. "You think I don't know that you've been trying to get your hands on everything I have left? You've crossed a line, Ashley, and no amount of sweet talking is going to fix that." Her voice cracked slightly, but she pushed on. "Dad, please, you don't know what it's like. He's not thinking clearly, and I just want to fix things. I want to make it right." "No, Ashley," I cut her off. "You don't want to make it right. You want me to let you off the hook. You want me to give in, like I always have, but that's not happening anymore." There was a long silence. I could almost hear her running through every possible excuse in her head. The silence stretched out longer than usual. Then, finally, she spoke, softer now. "You're really going to do this? You're going to let it go this far?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything that had led me to this point. All the years of working, of giving them everything, of sacrificing my time, my health, none of it mattered to them. It was gone in an instant. They hadn't even thought twice about the way they treated me. And now they wanted me to fix it? No, I was done. "I'm not going to let it go this far, Ashley," I said, the words coming out slowly. "I'm already past that. This isn't about fixing things. This is about teaching you both a lesson." She didn't have anything else to say. She just hung up. And that was the end of it. She had tried. And she had failed. But that was just Ashley. Michael was still lurking in the shadows, thinking of ways to claw his way back into the picture. And I knew he wouldn't go down quietly. Michael never did. I didn't have to wait long for his move. A few days later, he showed up at my door, his face a mask of frustration and anger. He was trying to play the victim now, but I saw right through him. The arrogance in his eyes was unmistakable. "Dad, we need to talk," he said, forcing the words out like they were a necessity. "I'm listening," I said, not bothering to hide the coldness in my voice. He started in, his voice rising as he went on. "You don't get it, do you? You're ruining everything. We've worked hard to try and make things right, and you're just pushing us away. You don't get to just walk away from your family like this." "I've walked away from nothing, Michael," I said evenly, not giving an inch. "I'm done being your punching bag. I'm done letting you and Ashley use me." "You're being ridiculous," he snapped, trying to grab control of the situation. "You're going to regret this. We're not going to let you ruin everything." I felt a tight knot in my chest, but I didn't let it show. This was the part where I stood firm, where I didn't back down. I wasn't going to be manipulated by him, not anymore. "You and Ashley can try all you want," I said quietly. "But the truth is, I'm already 10 steps ahead of both of you. I've been playing this game longer than you've been alive." His face darkened, and for a second, I saw the anger flicker in his eyes. But it wasn't just anger, it was fear. Fear that he had already lost, and he knew it. "Don't do this," he said, his voice quieter now. "You're making a huge mistake. You made the mistake when you thought you could just take everything from me and walk away unscathed," I told him, my voice cold. "But I'm not going to let you do that, not anymore." Michael's face twisted with frustration. He took a step back, clearly calculating his next move. "You'll regret this, Dad," he said, his voice shaking with a mix of anger and desperation. "You'll see." With that, he left, slamming the door behind him. I didn't care. The damage was already done. But as the days passed, I began to realize something. They were both running out of options. They had no idea what I had up my sleeve, but I could see it in their eyes. The fear, the doubt. They were realizing that they were losing. And it was only a matter of time before they made one last, desperate move. As I was going through some old files, a shocking discovery came to light. More evidence of their manipulations. Michael had been trying to use fraudulent means to get his hands on money, and Ashley wasn't far behind. They had been using lies, deception, anything they could think of, to try to get to the resources I had left. I had it all in black and white now, and they had no idea I'd uncovered their plans. I couldn't help but smile, feeling the first real rush of satisfaction since all this started. They thought they could get away with it. They thought they could sneak around me. But now, I had everything I needed to destroy them. I was going to expose it all. Every lie, every manipulation. They were going to see exactly what it felt like to lose everything. And this time, they wouldn't have anyone to blame but themselves. They thought they had me trapped. But they didn't realize it was already too late. The days that followed felt like an endless cycle of them coming at me from every angle, hoping they could break through, hoping they could change my mind. I could feel the pressure building, but I didn't crack. I couldn't. I'd already made up my mind. At first it was subtle, small things that made me realize they were getting desperate. The phone calls, the text messages. At first, they tried to appeal to my emotions, making me feel guilty. But it was different now. There was no more guilt. Not for them, not for me. Michael was the first to call again. His tone was different this time. Gone was the cocky arrogance, the sense of entitlement. Now there was nothing but desperation in his voice. He sounded almost broken. "Dad, I don't know what else to say. We're out of options. We can't keep going like this. You have to help us." I didn't respond immediately. I wasn't about to give him the satisfaction of a quick answer. Instead, I sat there, thinking about everything that had led me to this point. The lies, the manipulation, the way they'd used me for their own gain. They thought I was just going to sit back and let them walk all over me. But now they were on the other side of the table, and they didn't like the view. "I already told you, Michael," I finally said, my voice calm and cold. "I'm not helping you. Not anymore." "I'm your son," he said, almost pleading now. "You can't just cut me off. You raised me, and now you're just going to leave me to drown?" The words hit me, but only for a moment. They stung, but I wasn't going to let him use them to manipulate me. Not again. "You didn't care about me when you sold the house, Michael. You didn't care about me when you took everything from me. Now, you want to come crawling back, and you expect me to help you?" I shook my head, almost in disbelief at the audacity of it all. "That's not how it works. You made your choices, and now you're going to live with them." He didn't have a comeback for that. There was nothing left to say. He was out of options, and he knew it. Then it was Ashley's turn. I knew she'd be next. She called a few days later, her voice much softer this time, almost resigned. But there was still a hint of hope in it, like she thought she could still fix everything with one final plea. "Dad, please. We've tried everything. You know we have. We just need your help. We need you to come through for us. For once." "Help you?" I repeated, as if the word tasted foreign on my tongue. "You sold my house behind my back. You took everything I had, and now you want my help? You've lost that privilege, Ashley. I'm not your backup anymore." I could hear her breathing heavily on the other end of the line. It was quiet for a moment, the weight of my words settling in. "Please, Dad," she whispered. "We don't know what else to do. We're running out of time." "You ran out of time the moment you crossed me," I said, my voice unwavering. "You both made your bed. Now lie in it." There was nothing left to say. She hung up without another word, and I knew it was over. They had finally realized what I had known all along, that their plan had completely failed. They had no way out. They thought they could manipulate me into giving them more, into fixing the mess they'd created. But I wasn't that man anymore. The person they used to play their games with was gone. The silence that followed their calls was almost deafening. I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of calm. I had done what needed to be done. I had taken control back. But still, in the back of my mind, I knew they wouldn't give up. They were desperate. They would keep trying. And they did. I watched them flounder, trying to find alternative ways to finance themselves. They didn't have the resources they thought they did. Their bank accounts were frozen, and their credit cards maxed out. They couldn't get loans because of the way they'd manipulated their finances before. They tried everything they could think of: small-time loans, under-the-table deals, pawning off anything they could get their hands on. But it didn't matter. They couldn't win. They couldn't get ahead. Every move they made only dug them deeper into a hole they couldn't climb out of. The best part? They couldn't even come to me for help anymore. They couldn't beg, couldn't manipulate me into giving them one more chance. The game was over. As for me, I remained indifferent to their plight. I didn't feel sympathy. I didn't feel regret. I had been there for them their entire lives, and they had taken everything I gave them and thrown it in my face. I didn't owe them anything anymore. Nothing I did for them in the past mattered, not when they had turned their backs on me so easily. I had already made my peace with it. There was no going back. But then Georgia showed up. I should have expected it, honestly. She'd been trying to get involved for weeks, trying to talk me down, to get me to forgive them, to somehow fix things. She'd been watching the whole thing unfold from the sidelines, and now she wanted to step in. "Robert," she said when we finally spoke again, "please don't do this. You're hurting them. You're hurting yourself, too. You can't keep pushing them away. They're your children." "Don't talk to me about hurting, Georgia," I snapped. "You left them. You walked away, and now you want to come back and play the hero? It doesn't work like that. They've crossed a line, and there's no coming back from it." She was silent for a moment, and I could hear her struggling with what to say. "I know I made mistakes, Robert. I know I wasn't there. But this isn't the way to fix it. They need you." "They don't need me, Georgia. They need someone they can control, someone they can manipulate. And I'm not going to be that person anymore. I've had enough." Her voice softened, almost pleading. "Please, Robert, you can still change your mind. It's not too late." "It's too late," I said, my voice final. "I've made my decision. I'm done." She didn't respond. I could feel her giving up, and it was almost a relief. She knew it was over. She knew there was nothing she could do to change it. The worst part was knowing that deep down, even Georgia understood. She knew that no matter how hard she tried to save them, nothing could fix what they had broken. Michael and Ashley thought they could get away with everything. They thought they could walk all over me and still get the help they needed. But they were wrong. And now they were paying the price. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about respect. It was about showing them that their actions had consequences. They had lost, and I wasn't going to let them forget it. As I sat back in my chair, feeling the weight of everything settle in, I knew it was only a matter of time before the truth came crashing down on them. They had no more tricks left, no more options, and I would be there to watch as it all fell apart. Because that's what they deserved. They had no idea what was coming next. I could feel the tension building. Each passing day brought more signs that my children were starting to realize the weight of their choices. The house was gone, their access to the funds was cut off, and the walls were closing in on them. They couldn't get loans, couldn't manipulate the system like they once did. Every attempt they made to escape the consequences of their actions was failing. They were trapped in the mess they'd created, and all they could do was watch as their world crumbled around them. It was only a matter of time before the full extent of their deception came to light. But I wasn't about to let them go quietly. No. I needed them to understand the depth of their betrayal, the full weight of what they had done to me. I had kept track of everything. I had my lawyer collect the evidence, all the lies, all the manipulations, all the fraudulent actions they had taken to try and get what they wanted. It was all there, in black and white. They thought they could play me for a fool, that I wouldn't notice the hidden transfers, the altered documents, the secret accounts they had set up. They had underestimated me, and now it was time for them to face the consequences. I spent days going through the evidence. There were emails, bank statements, credit card transactions, everything that showed how far they had gone to deceive me. The more I dug, the more I found. There was nothing they hadn't tried to hide, but I had all the proof now. And it wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about their complete disregard for everything I had done for them. I printed out everything, every document, every email, every single shred of evidence that would show them just how deep they had gone into their own lies. I wasn't going to just tell them what they had done. I was going to show them in the most undeniable way possible. When I finally had everything ready, I knew it was time to take the final steps. This wasn't just about financial control anymore. It was about stripping them of everything they had tried to take from me. I wasn't going to let them walk away from this, thinking they could just move on with their lives after what they had done. They needed to understand that there were consequences, that the way they had treated me wasn't just some small mistake that could be brushed under the rug. I took the final steps to completely sever their access to everything. I worked with my lawyer to lock down any remaining assets they thought they could access. Any accounts, any investments, anything they thought they had a claim to, it was all gone. They were left with nothing. And I was going to make sure they knew it. I could feel the weight of the decision on me, but it didn't make me hesitate. In fact, I felt a strange sense of peace, like I had finally found the clarity I needed. I had spent too many years giving in, too many years hoping they would change, hoping they would realize what they were doing to me. But now I realized I had to take control. I had to make sure they couldn't hurt me anymore. Then came the phone call. It was from Ashley again, but this time it was different. There was no bravado in her voice, no fake confidence. There was just panic, desperation. She was finally realizing that everything she had hoped for, everything she thought she could get from me, was slipping through her fingers. "Dad, please," she started, her voice trembling. "We don't have anything left. You've taken everything. You're ruining us. This has gone too far." I let her speak, not interrupting. This was what I'd been waiting for, the moment when they finally realized how much they had lost. "I told you," I said, my voice calm and steady. "You don't get to control this anymore. You wanted to take everything from me. Now you get to live with the consequences." "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "I'm sorry, Dad, please. I don't know what to do. We don't have anything. We don't know where to turn." "You had everything, Ashley, and you threw it all away," I said, each word punctuated with the finality I had been feeling for weeks. "I gave you everything, and you used me. You took what wasn't yours, and now you have nothing left." She was quiet for a moment, and I could almost hear the gears turning in her head, trying to figure out how to fix this, how to win me back. But it was too late. I had already made my decision. "I don't need to hear any more excuses, Ashley. It's over. You're not going to get out of this, not this time." "I don't know what you want from us, Dad," she said, a hint of defeat in her voice. "You've taken everything from us. What do you expect us to do?" I leaned back in my chair, feeling a sense of calm settle over me. "I expect you to face the consequences, to finally understand that you can't just keep taking from people without paying the price." She was quiet for a long time. Then, finally, she spoke again, this time with a note of resignation. "You're right. We've lost. We've already lost everything." And that was it. The realization hit her. She understood that there was no going back. There was no magic solution to fix everything. They were done. I hung up the phone without another word, the weight of it all settling in. But even as I stood there, I knew this was just the beginning of the end. Ashley and Michael were still reeling, still trying to figure out how to salvage something, anything. But I knew it was too late for them. They had already lost. The pressure was building. The final confrontation was coming. I could feel it in my bones. They were going to have to face the truth. They were going to have to face me. And when that time came, everything would be made clear. They would know, without a doubt, that I had won. They would understand the full cost of what they had done, and they would know that there was no turning back. I wasn't going to give them an escape. I wasn't going to let them off the hook. This was it. The final blow was coming, and nothing would save them now. It was almost too quiet. The tension had been building for weeks, and now it was at a breaking point. I knew what was coming, but even as I prepared myself for it, I couldn't help but feel a sense of calm. They had tried everything to manipulate me, to change the situation, but the truth was, there was nothing left to say. They had lost, and I had won. But there was one last thing I needed to do. I wasn't going to let them walk away from this without understanding the full weight of what they had done. They needed to realize that there were no more chances, no more second opportunities, but I would give them one last shot, even if I knew it was pointless. I wanted them to see that they had a choice, one final chance to make things right. I wasn't expecting them to take it, not for a second. But it felt like the right thing to do. One last offer, just to see if they would finally wake up and understand what they had done. The phone rang that evening. I knew exactly who it was before I even picked up. Ashley. "Dad," she said, her voice a little shakier than usual. "We need to talk. This has gone too far. You're not listening to us." I leaned back in my chair, thinking about everything that had led up to this moment. The lies, the betrayal, the broken trust. There was no going back from this. But still, I couldn't help but offer her one last chance to make it right. Maybe there was a small part of me that still wanted to believe they could change, but I knew better. "I'm listening," I said, my voice even. She took a breath, like she was trying to gather the right words. "We don't have anything left. You've taken everything. We're stuck, and we need your help. I'm sorry, Dad. I really am. I didn't mean for things to go this far." I couldn't help but notice the desperation in her voice. She was scared. And that, in some strange way, gave me satisfaction. But it wasn't enough. I'd been through too much to fall for it again. "I know you're sorry," I said, calm and collected. "But sorry isn't going to fix this. You and Michael crossed a line when you decided to sell my house without even telling me. And now you want me to fix everything. I can't do that." Her voice trembled as she tried again. "We're just asking for one chance, Dad. Just one chance to make it right, please." I could feel the pull of old emotions, old instincts, the desire to forgive. But I buried it. There was no room for forgiveness now. Not for them. "I'm giving you one last chance, Ashley," I said, taking a deep breath. "But you have to understand. This is it. There are no more chances after this. If you and Michael want to try to save what's left, you have to apologize. You have to admit what you've done. Not just to me, but to yourselves. But I'm not holding my breath. I don't think you'll do it. I think you'll just keep lying, keep blaming everyone else." There was a long silence. I could hear her breathing on the other end, her thoughts running through her mind. She had no idea what I had planned, what I had already done. She thought she could still win me over with a few words. Finally, she spoke. "You don't get it, do you, Dad?" Her voice was cold now, the desperation replaced with something darker. "This is all your fault. You pushed us to this. You never gave us a chance. And now you want us to beg? To apologize for something you made happen?" It was all coming undone. the anger in her voice, the way she shifted the blame onto me. This was what I had been expecting. I'd given them one last chance to take responsibility, and they had refused. It was over. There was nothing left. "Do you hear yourself, Ashley?" I said, my voice rising with a mix of frustration and disgust. "You can't even take responsibility for your own actions. Everything that has happened is because of the choices you made, not because of me." But she wasn't done. "You ruined everything, Dad. You turned us into this. You turned us into failures. And now you think you can just wipe your hands clean of it all?" I didn't respond. There was no point. She had made her choice. They both had. They didn't care about the damage they'd done. They only cared about themselves. I could feel the tension building inside me, but I kept my voice steady. "I didn't ruin anything, Ashley. You did. And now you're going to have to live with it." She didn't speak again. Instead, she hung up. The finality of it hit me harder than I thought it would. I knew I was done with them, but hearing her hang up on me, hearing her refuse to take any responsibility, made everything feel final. There was no going back now. But even as I sat there, letting the silence fill the room, I knew this wasn't the end of the story. Not yet. I still had one more person to deal with. Georgia. I hadn't heard from her since she tried to intervene last time, but I knew she wouldn't stay quiet for long. And sure enough, she called a few days later. "Robert, please," she began, her voice soft, almost pleading. "You have to stop this. They're your children. They're struggling and they need you. You can't just leave them like this." I let her talk, but I wasn't going to be swayed. She didn't understand. She couldn't. "You still don't get it, Georgia," I said, my voice steady but cold. "This isn't about saving them anymore. They've made their choices, and now they have to face the consequences. I've already done more than enough for them, and they've made it clear they don't want my help." She didn't argue, but I could hear the desperation in her voice. "Robert, please don't do this. Don't let them lose everything. You're the only one who can help them." "I've helped them enough, Georgia," I said, the words heavy with finality. "I'm done." There was silence on the other end, and I could feel her processing everything. I knew she didn't understand, but I didn't care anymore. She had left me to deal with them alone. She had no right to try and step in now. "I know you think you're doing the right thing," she said, her voice quiet. "But in the end, you're going to lose them forever. You'll regret this." "I won't regret it," I replied, feeling the weight of my decision. They lost me the moment they chose money over family. I hung up before she could respond. It was over. The last vestiges of hope they had of getting out of this were gone. They had failed. They were alone now. The truth was clear. They had no one to blame but themselves, and I wasn't going to save them. The last confrontation was coming, and when it happened, everything would be laid bare. They would see just how far they had fallen, just how much they had lost, and they would know without a doubt that there was no coming back from this. The time had come. There was no more playing around, no more pretending that everything could be fixed with a few words or a quick apology. Ashley and Michael had crossed too many lines. They had pushed me to the edge, and now they were going to see exactly what it felt like to have the tables turned. They thought they could manipulate me. They thought I was just an old man they could walk all over. But I had played my cards carefully, and now it was time to show them the full extent of my hand. I sat in my office, staring at the pile of documents on my desk. The evidence was all there: emails, bank statements, credit card transactions, everything that proved how they had tried to deceive me. It wasn't just a few careless mistakes. It was a pattern, a deliberate effort to manipulate, steal, and lie. They thought they could get away with it, but I was ready to expose everything. I knew they were on the edge. They were desperate, trying anything to get back what they had lost. But they didn't realize that they were already out of moves. They had underestimated me, and now they were about to pay the price. The phone rang, and I didn't hesitate to pick up. It was Michael. I could already hear the tension in his voice. He was losing control, and he knew it. "Dad, we need to talk," he said, his words laced with frustration. "This isn't how it's supposed to be. You can't just take everything from us and expect us to walk away." "You've had plenty of chances, Michael," I said, my voice steady. "You had every opportunity to make things right, and you chose to betray me. Now, you're going to pay for it. You think we're the ones who messed up? You think this is all our fault?" His voice cracked, the anger and fear mixing together. "You pushed us to this. You made us do this." "Don't even try that, Michael," I replied, cutting him off. "You knew exactly what you were doing. You and Ashley have been plotting this for months, and now it's all falling apart. You think I didn't see it coming? You think I didn't notice the lies and the manipulations?" There was silence on the other end of the line. I could hear him breathing heavily, trying to come up with a response, but it was too late. I had already laid the groundwork. I had already prepared everything to expose them. "I knew from the start what you two were up to," I continued, my voice calm and deliberate. "You thought you could get away with everything. The house, the bank accounts, the hidden transfers, everything. But I was one step ahead. Every move you made, I saw it coming. Every lie, every manipulation, I saw through it all." I could almost hear the realization dawning on him. He wasn't in control anymore. He never had been. "Do you remember when you thought you could sell the house behind my back?" I asked, letting the words sink in. "You thought I wouldn't notice, didn't you? But I was already on top of it. I had already taken steps to make sure you couldn't touch any of it. That $900,000 you thought you were getting? Gone. Every penny of it. You didn't get a dime." I paused, letting him digest that information. I could hear the crackling of the line as he struggled to come up with something to say. But there was nothing left. He had no more excuses. "You're not getting away with this, Michael. You never were," I said, my voice now cold and final. "And Ashley? She thought she could sneak around me, too. She tried to access my accounts, tried to make transfers like I wouldn't notice. But I saw everything, every single move, every attempt to take what wasn't yours." There was a long silence, and for the first time, I could hear the panic in his voice. He was starting to realize just how thoroughly I had outsmarted him. "Dad, please. We didn't mean for it to go this far," he pleaded. "We just needed the money. We didn't know what else to do." "It doesn't matter anymore, Michael," I said, my voice hardening. "You had a chance to fix things. You had the opportunity to come clean, to make things right. But you didn't. You chose to keep lying, to keep stealing from me, and now you have nothing. Not a dime. Not a cent." He was quiet for a moment, the weight of my words sinking in. I could hear his mind working, trying to figure out a way to salvage something, anything. But it was too late. "I don't care how much you beg, Michael. You're not getting anything from me. Not now, not ever. You and Ashley dug your own graves, and now you're going to lie in them." I hung up without another word, not waiting for him to respond. There was nothing left to say. I had made my point. I had exposed their lies. They had nothing left to fight with. But I wasn't done yet. I knew Ashley would try to make one last desperate attempt to fix everything. She couldn't just let it go. I knew she'd come for me again, trying to twist things in her favor. And she did. The next day, I got another call. It was Ashley, and this time her voice was completely different. The arrogance was gone. The entitlement was gone. What was left was someone who knew they had lost. "Dad," she said, her voice cracking. "You were right. We messed up. We were wrong. Please just let us fix this. We can make it right. We can still fix everything." I let her go on, but I knew it was too late. She couldn't fix this. She couldn't undo the damage they had done. "I gave you both a chance, Ashley," I said, my voice firm. "I gave you a chance to make things right. But you refused. You chose to keep lying, to keep stealing. And now, you have nothing. "Please, Dad," she begged. "Please don't do this. We're your children. You can't just throw us away." I could feel the desperation in her voice, but it didn't move me. "I'm not throwing you away, Ashley. I'm just letting you see the reality of the situation. You've lost, and there's nothing you can do to change that now." She was silent for a long time, and I knew she was processing everything. I knew she was realizing, just like Michael, that they had no more moves left. They were trapped in their own lies, and there was nothing they could do to escape it. I could feel a strange sense of satisfaction, but also something else, something darker. I had warned them. I had given them every opportunity to make things right. And now they were paying the price. I wasn't finished. There was one more thing I had to do. One final blow to make sure they understood the full weight of what they had lost. But for now, they were already gone. They just didn't know it yet. The final part of my revenge was coming, and when it arrived, they would finally understand just how thoroughly they had been beaten. The day had finally come. The end game was here, and there was no more room for negotiation, no more chances, no more excuses. They had done everything they could to manipulate me, to guilt-trip me into giving them what they wanted. And now, it was time to finish what I had started. Ashley and Michael had been circling for days, trying to find a way back into my life, trying to find a way to regain control of the situation. But it was too late. I had already won. They just didn't know it yet. The moment they made that first move, the moment they thought they could play me like they played everyone else, it was over. They had lost. I had spent months watching them, waiting for them to reveal their true colors. And they had. All their lies, their manipulation, their desperation, it had all led to this. They had no more cards to play. They were cornered, trapped by their own actions. And now, it was time to let them know that there was no way out. I watched them from a distance, knowing they were on the edge, knowing they had no idea what was coming. I didn't even have to say much. They had already dug their own grave, but I was going to be the one to make sure they understood the full weight of their choices. When they finally came to see me, it wasn't with the same arrogance they had before. It was different now. They had nothing left to fight with. Ashley's eyes were red, swollen from crying. Michael looked like he hadn't slept in days. They were desperate. I could see it in their faces. They thought they could win me back with a few words, a few tears. They thought they could manipulate me one last time. But I wasn't falling for it. They sat down across from me, both of them looking at me with pleading eyes. I didn't speak right away. I just looked at them, letting the silence linger. "You were right," Ashley said, her voice shaky. "We've made mistakes. We've been selfish. We didn't realize how much we hurt you." Michael nodded, his voice almost too quiet to hear. "We're sorry, Dad. We didn't mean for things to get this far." I looked at them for a long moment, and then I spoke. "Sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't change what you did. You sold my house, you stole from me, and you thought you could just walk away from it all, but now you have nothing." They both flinched at my words, but I didn't care. They needed to hear it. They needed to understand the full scope of their betrayal. "Do you think I'm going to forgive you just because you say the words? Just because you cry and apologize?" I continued, my voice steady. "It's too late for that. You've already lost everything." Ashley looked like she was about to say something, but I held up my hand to stop her. "I'm not going to listen to any more of your excuses, Ashley. You had your chance. Both of you did." I leaned forward, picking up the check from my desk. The one they thought they could take from me. The one that represented everything they had tried to steal. I looked at it for a moment, then slid it across the table toward them. "Here," I said, my voice calm. "Take this. It's all you're getting from me." Ashley and Michael both looked at the check, then back at me. I could see the confusion in their eyes. They didn't understand. They thought I was going to give them more. They thought I was going to soften. But I wasn't. I had already made my decision. "Take it," I repeated, my voice sharp. It's $10,000. That's all I'm giving you. The rest is gone. You've lost everything else. Ashley reached for the check hesitantly, but Michael stopped her with a glance. They both looked at me again, like they were waiting for me to change my mind, like they were waiting for me to give them more. But I didn't. I wasn't going to give them anything else. Find yourself a room far from town, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of everything I had been feeling. You've already destroyed everything. Now you can go and figure out how to live with it. They didn't know how to respond. They just sat there, staring at the check in front of them, completely stunned. I could see the panic setting in. They had nothing left. No backup plan, no way to fix it. They had tried to manipulate me, to twist the situation in their favor, but it had all backfired. They were completely defeated. I stood up slowly, walking toward the door. They didn't move. They were still sitting there staring at the check like it was some kind of lifeline, but they knew it wasn't. It was just a symbol of everything they had lost. I paused at the door, turning back to face them one last time. This is the end. You don't get to keep playing this game. It's over. They didn't say anything. They couldn't. There was nothing left to say. I could see the realization in their eyes. They had lost, and they had no one to blame but themselves. I opened the door and walked out, leaving them sitting there in silence. The weight of the moment hit me as I stepped outside. There was no relief, no satisfaction in what I had done. It wasn't about getting revenge or teaching them a lesson. It was about cutting them out of my life completely. They had taken everything from me, and now they had nothing left to take.